All right, we're here today with Alex Jarbo. Alex is one of my one-on-one mentorship clients in the short-term rental space. He is in Asheville, North Carolina, at the epicenter of everything that's going on, and has turned one of his short-term rental compounds into a central hub for all of the private rescuers. He'll tell us a little bit about that. We're also going to post a link where you can help support the work that they have going on. Alex, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So tell us what's going on in Asheville, everything from, what it really looks like, what's really going on with FEMA. Yeah, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so if people don't know, going back all the way to the beginning. So I think it was like September 26, 27. Friday morning is like sort of where Hurricane Helene sort of finished coming through here. And this area historically has like the whole Western North Carolina was just supposed to be like an impenetrable bowl of mountains for any type of crazy weather. But we saw the worst flooding and rain, mainly the worst flooding we've seen in over 100 years. It is the worst flooding that has happened, both on record and off record. And yeah, there were a lot of areas that were hit very, very, very hard. River Arch District, Biltmore Village, which is essentially the front door to Biltmore, even though Biltmore wasn't really affected. And a lot of the back roads, a lot of the neighborhood roads were really, really, really affected. Put in perspective, in Biltmore Village, the water crested at 28 feet.
Wow.
So anyone that had sandbags lined up 3, 4 feet that were trying to do the right thing, all the restaurants in that area, you can when you go there. I mean, I'm not saying to go there, but when you like, I've seen it with being with the rescue crews, just seeing where the water line finished out. Um, but yeah, so it was a little bit of a weird 3 days from Friday to about Monday. We didn't have any cell phone reception. Personally, we couldn't even we lived 20 minutes away from this property at our personal house. We couldn't even leave our property or a neighborhood because of the amount of trees that had fallen on the roads and the electricity lines being down. Um, and even when we were able to get out on Monday, we still didn't have electricity. And then whoever decided to do it all, it was probably partly because of the electricity lines with all the trees that fell. They didn't have we didn't have cell phone reception, no internet.
What about running
And
water?
so we had running water. We're on city water at our house, and most of the higher end houses are also on city water. But so electricity turned on for us on Tuesday, and that same day, Asheville's water system actually collapsed, and it's still out now. So we actually got lucky with all of our actual rentals and properties because when electricity started to get turned on at all of those, starting with Engadine here, they're all on well, and every single well that we've always put in has a whole house filtration system in it. So after running the water and flushing those systems at each one of the properties, um, yeah, that we do have what running water, but like the hospital still doesn't have reliable running water, and none of the businesses or any type of community in Asheville has clean water. Right now, I think it is running where you can flush your toilets, but for the last 2 weeks, you had to essentially, no matter you lived in an $18 million house, which we have a funny story about that, or a normal, like even a single wide, you were flushing your toilet with a bucket. Um, so yeah, that happened. And then we came here Tuesday because I had done my rounds at all my properties and saw what had electricity, what had what. This property had electricity, which also meant it had water because of the well. And then that next day, for some reason, so we have the main house, 6 suites, and then we have the 6 cabins above us on 12 acres. For some reason, we got wired internet turned on, gigabyte at the house, and then the 300 megabyte at the rest of the cabins, each one of the cabins, which is weird because the hospital on this side, Haywood Hospital, which has running water about 20 minutes away from here, they didn't even have internet, and we did. And around that time, that same day, my wife had seen something from a nonprofit called Global Empowerment Mission, GEM. And they're the biggest rescue NGO, non-governmental organization in the world. And my wife had seen on their social media that they were pushing out helicopter rescue missions from I don't like to say competitor, just another wedding venue in this area. This property is also a wedding venue. Um, so I called them that same day, Global Empowerment Mission, and I told them, hey, if you guys need another staging ground, Just let me know. I'm prior military. And then they were like, yeah, we'll just keep you in the back of our mind. And then 3 days later, they actually did end up calling me and they're like, hey, we've grown so much that we actually do need another spot for one of the main nonprofits that we're working for, which is Aerial Recovery Group or Aerial Recovery Mission. And Aerial Recovery came here. They did a recon of the area. They originally called me and they're like, hey, do you have an extra barn that these guys can stay in? Because they're used to sleeping on the ground during hurricanes. And I was like, yeah, I do have an extra barn. I have an empty barn, but I was like, I'll give you guys one of the cabins and also our 30 by 50 tent that obviously is not being used right now, where you guys can essentially sleep people under the tent so they're not sleeping in the rain. And at that time, it was like touching maybe 60, 70 still at night. And then I had asked them how many days they want to stay and how many people. They said 8 to 10 for 7 days. And then I saw just the amount of stuff that was being donated, both from Global Empowerment Mission, which they mainly coordinate supplies, and then just the influx of volunteers that came in. And that's where I spoke to their commander essentially on day 5. And I was like, how long do you realistically need? And he had said 4 to 6 weeks. And I was like, that's done. I was like, that's no issue. Um, so once I could also tell that they were sort of holding off on a lot of the bigger missions because they didn't know they were going to stay long term. And once they did that, sort of the floodgates opened. And then that was about a week and a half ago. And ever since then, we've hosted about 300 volunteers that have cycled through, and they've probably ran 500 to 600 missions, whether it be they started with the aggressive like rescue missions. Unfortunately, like they do have cadaver dogs with them because they were also, I mean, coming across a lot of bodies. And I mean, when they first got here, they were doing like rappelling missions off of mountains with aerial rescue for the people that they were rescuing because they couldn't get in via roads. And then their mission has sort of transformed a little bit into like more of stabilization. So cutting down massive trees that are like insurance adjusters can't get to. They're still doing rescue missions. Unfortunately, they are still finding bodies as well as of yesterday. Um, but yeah, we sort of hunkered down with them, closed off all the properties. The main house is being where I'm at right now, which is the bed and breakfast piece. All of our friends and family are here, mainly friends from North Asheville, like that don't have water. And then we've opened up our laundry facility and this downstairs bedroom for anyone that's not even staying with us. That's like in our friend group that if they want to take a shower, do laundry, they can come over here. And then yeah, in the middle of all this, we also incorporated a nonprofit, which I didn't think being 29 years old I was gonna do that anytime soon. But we incorporated a nonprofit, got emergency clearance because we're in a disaster zone and raising money for disaster relief. We got that approved within like 12 hours through a really good CPA that was referred over to me by a friend who also did it here, incorporated a nonprofit here. And we ended up, we started raising money for them. We started with a GoFundMe, which is still live for smaller donations. And then we started accepting some larger wires and donations from some of our investors of our other properties as well. So
Cool.
like in
What
that
about
time, yeah.
cryptocurrency? Do you take cryptocurrency at all?
Haven't gotten that question yet, but I will. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I mean that I never even, I mean, up until you just asking that, I never even considered that as an option. But yeah, 100% will take crypto.
Okay.
And then we did the nonprofit thing to one, obviously protect the larger donors. And then, I mean, it is a tax write-off to them with it being the end of the year. And I mean, you sort of tapped into it, you touched on it briefly. Um, FEMA is not taking away, like a lot of the stuff on FEMA is like just made up or fake, or maybe some neighbors are annoyed or something. And they just made this up and it just, the news catches it. But they have dropped the ball significantly here. There are some areas that this group Ariel has gone into that they essentially kicked FEMA out of and started working with the locals directly. And kicked is the wrong word, but just ended up working better with them. But yeah, that's why we started doing that race was just we
Yeah,
saw
but you
how
got to be
quick.
careful what you say. The sound bite, local group kicks
Yeah,
FEMA out now, so
yeah.
they
No,
just
we
came
didn't.
in,
Yeah, we didn't do that.
outperformed,
Yeah,
supplement what they're doing. But yeah,
right. Exactly. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, FEMA is still doing a great job here. Same thing with the National Guard, but they're privately funded for the most part, like outside of donation. I mean, with donations, and they're all the team leaders are ex special forces, and they're also trained at a level like even a higher level because the founder of the nonprofit is in like an ODA, like a ex Green Beret guy.
And
So
that's
they
aerial
even go
rescue you're talking about?
yeah, aerial recovery, which
Aerial
we'll link.
recovery. Okay.
Yeah, we'll link them as well. But yeah, they are probably the sharpest tools the military has created in the last 20 years, and they're all here. They mainly do anti-trafficking missions when they're not doing like hurricane relief. So yeah,
Yeah, hurricane and other disaster relief, I'm sure.
yeah. Like usually their day-to-day stuff outside of this is like anti-human trafficking in like South America and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's tragic. I mean, I spent a couple of years in Asheville, North Carolina from 95 to 97,
right.
so I know a lot of those areas, and yeah, that whole area has always been thought of as a climate disaster-free zone. But 100 years ago there was, roughly to this date
Yep,
time
exactly.
period, there was, a historic flood.
Yep.
And anytime you have a river, you're always at risk,
Yeah,
especially.
we made the joke with like all of our GCs, like talking to GCs and working with GCs for the last 7 years. I'm like, you have some GCs that are like, oh, you can avoid the 100-year FEMA flood map because obviously we always look that stuff up in our due diligence. And then it's like those those flood maps, like the flooding on those flood maps went higher than what the flood map had said in all the areas that I had seen.
Yeah, they're just
So
guessing. Yeah, you can get
yeah,
FEMA map amendments and this, that, and the other. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you've got a river and you're close to it, you have to be so many feet above base flood, and they adjust that base flood level, from time to time based on historical data, where the river's going, what the recent levels look like. And same thing on the ocean. I dealt with FEMA a lot on the ocean.
right.
Obviously went through multiple hurricanes down there and dealt with FEMA from a disaster recovery. I was actually in the Virgin Islands when Hugo went through
Mm,
back in 1989, I believe it
yeah,
was. Wiped that place out. We had no power or running water or like, anything for like months.
yeah,
And I was young, so it was like a big camping trip for me. And there
right.
weren't a lot of deaths, fortunately, but there was a lot of disaster. And I mean, same thing. We couldn't get out of our driveway. We had to cut trees and move trees. And I went to work for a while, just putting tarps on houses and things like that to
Yeah,
kind of shore them up.
that's mainly what they're doing right now. Yeah,
Yeah, but we had no ice, no running water, no
right.
nothing. And I mean, it was 104 degrees in the afternoons there, and you don't know how much you miss ice until you don't have it when it's hot and you're doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, FEMA came down, they set up, and it was a nightmare. It's just cumbersome. It takes them forever. There's no streamlined process, and even on the Outer Banks, when I lived on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, after I left Asheville, I moved to the Outer Banks of North Carolina in '97. I went through a couple of hurricanes there, and there was a big flooding event where several a bunch of houses were flooded, and then FEMA came in with some relief funds to elevate these houses out of the flood zone. So I was chosen as a contractor. They had $1 million to work with, and I had to decide which house was going to be done based on the amount of money they allocated because it was just ridiculous. They would come out and they would
Right.
have an estimate for a house that needed $50,000.
Which has
They
happened. Yep.
estimated 20,000, and the
Right.
house that needed 20,000, they estimated 50,000. So I
Yep.
had to take,
Literally happened yesterday with a FEMA adjuster. It was like 300 grand, and they gave this 80-year-old woman like 80.
yeah,
Like, yeah, yeah,
yeah, it makes zero sense. So they just said, "Hey, you got $1 million. You know what needs to be done. You figure out, help the most people you can with this
right.
money." And we did. We ended up, I don't know, we got over a dozen altogether. Well, maybe it was 20. Yeah, we might have elevated about 20, 24 houses out of the flood zone with $1 million. And this was back in, 1980.
Right.
No, I moved there in 97, 98, 90, somewhere around there. It was Hurricane Floyd that came through and just flooded that place. It
Yeah.
was a nightmare. Or maybe it was
Yeah.
Isabel. I can't remember. I went through four hurricanes down there. I don't even remember.
Yeah. The crazy thing about here too is like nobody was ready for it. Like
Hmm.
I mean, we were expecting like 6 inches, 8 inches would still would have been a lot. Not 36 inches. And then it's
Of
just
rain, yeah.
yeah, it's just a funnel. Like the mountains are a funnel. So um like the
That
city
unique
didn't
bowl aspect of protection
yes, yes,
is actually what did it in.
exactly. It turned it into a fishbowl. Like it's
Hmm.
literally what it did. Yeah. And the city didn't even have time to push out their emergency evacuation messages because the the internet and all the cell phone towers were completely turned off by that time the messages were even sent out. It was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So how's it going now? I mean, are the roads getting cleared? Like you can get around Asheville generally and
Yeah, all the highways are cleared. Outside of Biltmore Village, the River Arts District, and like those areas that were like really, really affected. And outside of the water issue too, which they said 2 to 8 weeks, 2 weeks ago. So we're just banking on the 8 weeks. That the water will probably be the thing that once the water gets turned back on and fixed, sort of be the thing that really starts moving the needle. But yeah, people are going out. A lot of people are doing fundraisers for the local businesses because most of these businesses that flooded didn't have flood insurance because they were in flood zones. Like the River Arts District and Biltmore Village are both in flood zones. So I've talked to a lot of business owners that I've just worked with in the last 7 years, and just, I mean, that's mainly what I've been doing for 2, 3 weeks outside of supporting Ariel. Um, yeah, a lot of stuff are open. Blue Ridge Parkway is completely closed because a lot of those roads and those tunnels did wash out, unfortunately.
yeah,
And I mean,
that's
it's
all
great.
throughout. That goes into Virginia as well. Virginia,
Yeah,
North Carolina, a
yeah,
lot of areas that the parkway ended up,
yeah,
ended up closed just because of down trees and mudslides, roads washed out.
yeah. So I know Buncombe County, the county here, has still decided not to accept tourism, which they are right. Biltmore Estate's supposed to open up November 2nd, and then some other places are supposed to open up as well. It is a good trickle. People are like all the surrounding counties are accepting tourism because I mean we're in leaf season here, October, November. So I mean this is our busiest time for tourism. But like the county has said like don't come here yet, and we agree with that. There was a lot of disaster tourism that happened in the beginning that happens everywhere. That was just incredibly annoying seeing it firsthand, essentially just clogging up the roads. You have like influencers coming in like, hey, I'm bringing 2 packs of water with me just to be able to shoot out here and shit like that. Sorry if I'm cussing. I was like, we have like 200 pallets of water up here. Like your 2 cases of water is not gonna do anything. But yeah, things are starting to open up now. It's just the long term effects of like a lot of the back roads that are even like NC dot like the Department of Transportation roads that are still washed out. That's mainly what these guys are handling, is stuff like that. The body count, the death toll numbers are completely off, and they're not trying to hide anything. It's just a lot of those bodies just haven't been identified yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
crazy. So, now as far as your involvement, you're donating your houses that you have in your portfolio to people that need midterm rentals while they're getting their lives together and things like that, as well as your other
yeah.
compound for the rescuers. So talk a little bit about that and
Yep.
what the immediate needs are and how people can help you. And of course, we'll post all the links
Yep.
to this. I'm going to put this video out everywhere on Twitter and everything. I'll
Sweet.
tag. We'll talk about Trump in a minute. I know Trump was in Asheville yesterday, I think it was,
Yeah.
and you're trying to get him to visit you, but I'll tag Trump and Elon and see if we can't get this to go viral and
Yeah. The
get people
viral.
to help you out.
Yeah. We welcomed Aerial Recovery. When did we do that? We did that about 2.5 weeks ago, and then they're going to be staying at least to November 6th. And if they need an extra week or two, they'll stay further. Right now, as we're recording this, October 22nd. And beyond that, so all of our other properties luckily didn't have damage. Even the roads are fine. Those all have electricity, water, hot water, wired internet. They're all in well and septic. Once aerial recovery leaves, we're going to be we're working with all the insurance companies here to place people that lost their houses, and then we'll just get paid directly through the insurance companies. And then we're actually working on that for the other properties right now. But the reason why we started both the GoFundMe and just the GoFundMe is the wrong term, but like that's just a small piece of it. The reason why we started the fundraiser was one to because we're cooking dinner, breakfast, and housing these guys for essentially 8 weeks. Um, One to keep the lights on, but also, I mean, we've already donated about 50 grand worth of supplies to them alone, just from our donors. And there are some there outside of them. There's some people that they're looking to help. That we're also raising money for. Like a big need that we're almost done raising for is a $28,000 generator for the last dairy farmer in the Chimney Rock area. So we're like a lot of that money is also going to the community because I've mentally transitioned into helping business owners now, because they are helping the communities and whatnot. So we're raising 5,000 here, 10,000 here, and just surprising a lot of the business owners that I've worked with personally. that I know they're not gonna accept this money if a camera's in their face. But if I surprise them with it and not tell them about it, I mean, I'm gonna force them to take it. But like we're in the back end outside of a lot of social media stuff. We're raising money for a lot of the local businesses that have supported Engadine and my other properties in the past, or just on a personal basis too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And a lot of people hearing this, so I think it's over 95% of the people there did not have flood insurance.
yeah, yep,
Regular liability insurance, homeowners insurance, business
right.
insurance does not cover flood. They probably also didn't have business interruption insurance. And even if you do have flood insurance, and I dealt with this, I mean, it took 2 years to get through the process with FEMA to receive monies for several of the oceanfront properties that I was helping people with. It took a year to get that funding I was talking about to elevate those houses. It's just such a difficult process. And then you have deductibles and this, that, and the other. And,
And then
it's never a one
you
for one. Insurance
you
is
you
never what people think it is.
you throw in the water piece too of like, so a good example is like Asheville is known as one of the brewery capitals of the country. Um, Most of these breweries can't operate right now. I mean, they have cisterns outside that they're trucking in water, but a good example is like the main brewer, like the brewing supply store here, who I'm very close with the owner. He's like, yeah, most people, like, we're open and we don't have water, but most people aren't even thinking about brewing right now to get their minds off stuff because they don't have water. So stuff like that, like we're supporting those types of businesses, restaurants too, just to get them through even the next like 2, 3 months.
Yeah, yeah,
So
they're missing
yeah,
not only, business in general, but the season. This is the seasonal time of year when
exactly.
Asheville gets a lot of
This
visitors
is
for
where
the
they
leaves
make
and the
like
foliage.
70% of their money a lot of time to get them through the winter and whatnot. So that's our goal. Whatever business we end up funding for and surprising them with is to be able to give them like say 3 to 4 months of just operating expenses.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's awesome that you're doing that. So everybody watching this, let's share this. Let's push it out. Let's get Alex some exposure, make this thing viral. And we go ahead and tell everybody where they can, find you and help. And I will post the links in this video.
Yeah, you guys can find the GoFundMe on my Instagram, my personal Instagram, which is Magic Boy Jarbo. That'll be put in the show notes and then or the comment the description, and then Engadine Inn and Cabins, which is mainly where the GoFundMe's at. That's the that sort of headquarters right now where we're at, where Ariel is at. And then if you want to reach out directly, you can just DM me on Instagram. If you want to do like a direct wire to the nonprofit that we're raising through, compared to just going through GoFundMe, which has happened probably 10 times at this point for larger
Yeah.
donations. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's why I'm doing this, because there's a lot of fakes and scams and things like that out there. So everybody knows this is coming from my channel. I'm going to post the links. I'm going to post in the comments so that it's me. On YouTube, you have the verified profile picture, so that it's me, as well as Twitter verified there and everything. So I'm
Yeah, and
going to push this out.
we're taking pictures of everything and videos of any type of supplies that we're getting for the guys. Like a good example, not to interrupt you, is like we realized the guys were coming back at like 8, 9 p.m. in the beginning, and we mainly realized it was because they had not the best chainsaws. Maybe they were like residential chainsaws. So like the first money we got donated to us was about 10 grand. We went out and bought like commercial fuel injected chainsaws for the guys, and they were coming back at like 3 p.m. So like whatever donations come through, we're documenting it outside of obviously providing the tax information whenever that time comes for the donations. But we're taking pictures, videos, and you'll see we get the donations, and then that same day or the next day we are going out and buying the stuff for the people or donating it to the local businesses that next day.
Yeah. And you
So
also have a
yeah.
list of things that if people would rather supply items, that you have a list and
Yeah, yeah, and we'll link that too because I updated that list yesterday, and then the address to this property is on that list as well. They can just FedEx and UPS is working. A lot of the volunteers are just donating a lot of stuff that's on that list, and some lists that they have up there as well. They can also do that as well. It's a direct donation off Amazon or whatever you're getting the items from on that list, and you can just ship it directly here as
yeah,
well.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
FEMA help may come, but it's going to take a while. So it's awesome that
yeah, it
you're doing
will.
this to bridge
Yeah,
that
yeah,
gap.
absolutely. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
cool. Well, Alex, I
All right.
appreciate you taking some time out. I know you're busy, coordinate all this, and we thank you for everything you're doing.
I appreciate it, Greg.